I'm honored to be here. I'm thrilled to be invited to this space and to share something that I'm really passionate about, which is inclusion in online learning and in creating pedagogies that that bring the best of us, our content, and our students to the same space. And so, just as a quick note, I do want to acknowledge that it is 6 a.m. in California. And so with that, I'm going to ask a quick question or two quick questions of you. First question, I'm going to launch a poll and you'll be able to see the questions. The first question is about your drink choice in the morning. And I'm sorry if I don't have your actual drink choice in the morning, but you have to choose from one of the ones there. And the second one is where do you see yourself predominantly working in this field? And that will give me a little bit of a sense of who we are and can go from there. So you should see the poll has been launched and there's 2 questions. So if you'll take a question, are you seeing the poll? Great, I'm seeing answers.
Yes.
So thank you. As you're completing your poll, I'm going to tell you that I am a coffee girl and I have with me my cup of coffee this morning to keep me awake and chipper at this early hour. This is actually my typical coffee drinking time, not my typically give a keynote presentation time. And then for the second question, I most definitely see myself predominantly as a teacher. Looks like we have about 77% of the results in. Ooh, we're up to 81. I'll give it another second or two and end the poll and share with you the results. So here's the results of where we are. Looks like we are almost a perfect 50-50 split, slightly more coffee than tea. Hopefully you've had your chance for coffee, tea, juice, or water this morning. It's interesting to see that split is almost even. And then, interesting. So predominantly 50% of us see ourselves in the role of teaching. We have some research management, and I recognize that many of us do all of these things. So I know I put you in a box where I put you in a situation where you had to select one box. Awesome. All right. Well, I am definitely approaching my presentation from a teaching perspective. However, I think as far as like developing course development, it certainly fits there too. So thank you for sharing that with me. And I am going to start by sharing my screen. Share screen. All right, you should be seeing that screen. So I am going to approach our discussion today in how to best meet our students' needs from the premise of being superheroes. And so the title is How to Save the Day for Both You and Your Students. I think I added a little bit about me, but I think Charmaine did such a great job. I'm not sure you really need all of this. I'll just go over it quickly. I do straddle 2 different departments, education and recreation, and my university is in the far most northern coastal reach of California. So if you've ever seen pictures of the coastal redwood trees, the giant redwood trees that are right on the ocean, that's my neighborhood. That's where I hail from. All of my career has been disability focused, whether that be in recreation, in sports, or in education. And I have spent a good portion of that focusing on designing and delivering digital pedagogies. And then access and inclusion has always been my focus, and that includes in face-to-face coursework as well as in digital pedagogy. And then, as Michelle mentioned, I'm a two-time Fulbright scholar. First scholarship I had with UWE was at the St. Augustine campus, and then the second one was with Mona. And so that's a little bit about me and how I fit into this discussion. Let's talk about superheroes though, because that's far more fun. So I want us to think for a minute about what is the role of a superhero? When you think of superheroes, what comes to mind? And you don't necessarily have to answer, but just pull to mind what you feel is the role of a superhero. And I did that myself, but then I decided to jump to AI and see what AI would tell us is the role of a superhero. And this is what AI told me. It says that a superhero are fictional characters with extraordinary powers who often use their abilities to help the world. So I'm going to suggest that we tweak that just a little bit to fit our purposes today. The first tweak I'd like to make is that we are not, in fact, fictional. We are real life people doing hard things. So with that in mind, I think we can fit ourselves into that category of superheroes. And then the extraordinary powers. Yes, we have extraordinary powers. We design online curriculum so that we can meet students where they are and use technology to provide access. I think those are pretty extraordinary powers. And then finally, that we help the world. Of course, we're helping the world. We're helping our students succeed so that they can go on to be the next generation of superheroes. So we already are the superheroes that we need to be. So my goal for our time today is for you, our real life superheroes, to recognize the knowledge and skills that you already have. Those are your extraordinary powers. And to give you the framework to use those skills to address challenges in online teaching and learning, to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education. That's to help the world. So our goal today is to become the superheroes that we already are. So we're going to embark in Superhero Training 101. So the first task that we're going to do in our superhero training is to survey the scene, because no superhero is going to dash into a scene without first surveying it to ensure that they understand what they're approaching. So we're going to survey our scene. In order to do that, we're going to consider our own personal strengths. Each of us as superheroes has different strengths. So we're going to consider our strengths, and we're going to notice barriers that our students may have to accessing the experiences that we're trying to create for them. Then we're going to develop some sustainable strategies. And I'm going to frame our sustainable strategies around universal design for learning, which if that's something, a term you're already familiar with, then say no more. If it's a new term to you, I will explain universal design and give us some concrete ways to embed that into our digital pedagogies. And then we're going to look for simple solutions, because those are the sustainable solutions, right? We want to create strategies that are usable for us and beneficial for our students. We don't want to put in a framework that's so complex that we won't use it, because then, in fact, it's not benefiting our students. And then, as all good superheroes would need to do, we need to put a plan in action and then evaluate our results. So that is our Superhero Training 101. So let's start off with our superpowers. And I would like us to do that I'm going to stop sharing real quick. I would like us to do that in a small group discussion. It looks like there's 64 of us. So rooms of 4, Michelle, do you think that would work? But don't go anywhere yet, because hold on. I'm going to share with you a document. There we go. Sorry, it wasn't popping up for me. Boy, my computer is being pokey. Sorry about that. Come on, computer. My computer needs some superhero training. Copy the link. All right. In the chat, I'm going to share a link. And the link has a table. All right. So that should be showing up for you. Chat. I don't want the chat in the big window. There we go. All right. So everybody should see that. And I am going to ask you to go into small breakout groups. If we were in a face-to-face conference, I might say, talk to your neighbor. This is the way we're going to talk to our neighbors. And I want you to share one strategy of superpower that you have that you feel helps enhance your teaching or course design with regard to digital pedagogy. And then add it to the list. And at the end, we'll have a list of all of these different superpowers that we have collectively as a group. Is your task clear? I think we are all back together now. And wow is all I can say. What an amazing crew we have gathered here together in our superpower training. Look what you bring to the table. This is amazing. And there are such great reminders for me of the strengths that we all have. Like as I'm reading through this, I'm like, oh yeah, I do that too. I didn't even consider that. And I hope you're doing the same thing. These are amazing, from patience and learning to dialoguing with students, building relationships. Yes, yes, yes. Simplifying concepts. I love that one, Troy, taking difficult concepts and making them accessible to our students. These are amazing. See, we already have these powers in us. And so if you didn't get a chance to finish writing, please feel free. This is a live document. It will stay open and you have access to it after this presentation to take with you, so you can continue to ponder on ways that you can maybe adopt some of our cohorts superpowers and make them your own, or highlight the fact that you already have those. So thank you for sharing those. I hope you had a fun opportunity getting to chat with others. And I meant to share this earlier. I'm sorry I didn't. I'm going to share the link to the presentation so that you have that. Two reasons I want to share the link. One, so that you have access to it afterwards, but also I have embedded links into the slide deck so that you can explore further when our session is done, because we don't have that much time together. So I'm going to jump back into it if that's all right with everybody, and share my screen. All right. So, whoops, it didn't go. Share, sorry. Now it went. All right. So when we think about applying our superpowers, we've surveyed the scene, and now we need to think about what are some barriers to successful online learning. And I want to address this through a list that I believe it was Michelle who put this list together originally, Michelle Stort-McCoy, for a presentation we were working on, and it fits perfectly today. So I co-opted it and pulled it into this. So with that in mind, we have some academic barriers we need to think about when we're talking about our students, talking about helping our students access the content. And so here's a list of academic barriers that we may potentially encounter. It may be that there's an instructional delivery misalignment, maybe the difficulty level of the material is not the right match. The workload management, time management, unaccustomed to learning independently. I find this one often is the case when I have first-time online learners that maybe they've become more prompt dependent in their face-to-face classes, and then when they take an online class, they're not used to that sort of more constructivist learning, in the absence of self-direction, and unfamiliar with constructivist approaches. So there's a slew of things that might get in the way with regard to academics. Then there's also other things that can occur. Whoops, that's one too far. Social that relate to social and emotional learning, like the difficulty transitioning into a new environment, lack of motivation, insecurity, or feeling of isolation and exclusion. And I saw on our superpower list, several people talk about the importance of building relationships, and that's a skill that you bring to the table. And that's super important for online learning platforms. And then the last one is technology. And with regard to technology, gapping that divide. Now, if our students don't have access to technology, it's our responsibility to help them figure out how to best access that internet connectivity, or how to best access the computers that they may need that have the speed or the programs that they need in order to be successful. And also, surprisingly, I'm always amazed at the number of students who aren't comfortable navigating a digital platform. And you'd think with, especially with younger students who, this is, they're on computers so often, you think it would be secondhand, but that's not always the case. And so it's a really good idea to keep that in mind, that we may need to be sure that they have the navigational skills. So there are plenty of barriers, and our job as superheroes is to recognize those and remove those barriers. And I'm going to suggest the framework of universal design as a really great strategy to help remove those. And so universal design really quickly stems from architecture. And in the architectural model for universal design, the premise is that we build spaces that are accessible to everyone rather than going in and retrofitting afterwards. So the focus is on design without barriers. And so if you think of your campus, I'm sure you can come up with some different things that are designed with access in mind. Some simple ones that come to mind for me are buildings that have ramps for access, or doors that open automatically with sensors. So drinking fountains, or water bottle filling stations. Those are all accessibility features that we don't really think about because everyone uses them. They're for everyone, but they also create access and remove barriers for people who need those features. And so when we take that concept and apply it to come back. My computer is pokey. Oh, sorry. I want to share my favorite comic. So this is a great example, a comic that describes, it's a little fuzzy, but it explains in a really great pictorial way the benefit of creating access for everyone all at once. And in this picture, there's someone shoveling something that's probably not too familiar to most of you, shoveling snow. And there's a person who uses a wheelchair trying to get into the building. And he says, "Could you please shovel the ramp?" And the person who's shoveling the snow says, "All of these kids are waiting to use the stairs. When I get through shoveling them off, I'll clear the ramp for you." And the person who uses the wheelchair says, "But if you shovel the ramp, we can all get in." And I just love that. I just love that premise, because that's exactly what we're talking about with education as well. When we apply universal design to learning, it's the exact same premise. If we create access for one student, we're creating a way for all students. So when we switch to universal design for learning, it's proactive. The way I would define that is proactive design of courses, lessons, experiences, and assessments. And they're proactively designed to ensure that educational experiences are accessible regardless of learning styles, physical or sensory abilities, and it's built upon brain research. So let's talk a little bit more about that. So the foundations of brain-based learning, easy to say, is here a couple of these premises are: the one that does the work does the learning. And so I think that's important for us to remember, that we want to have our students engaged in doing the work in online courses. Rather than us just telling them. It's important for them to be putting their hands on and interacting and engaging directly with the content. Bloom's taxonomy tells us that deep learning happens at the higher level of knowledge, when students are not just memorizing, but instead are applying, creating, and evaluating. That neural pathways are activated when students are happy and interested and attentive. When we elicit positive emotions, when we help students feel safe and engaged, when we use authentic learning experiences, and when we use multisensory learning, when we teach through multiple ways, this helps students, helps those neural pathways fire and connect. We also know from brain research that two heads are better than one. When students work collectively, like through collaborative learning, the learning becomes deeper. And that students who are engaged perform at higher levels, right? So if we keep students engaged in our coursework, there's a greater likelihood that the learning is going to be deep and is going to last. These are all components of brain-based learning, and they are all concepts that are directly connected to universal design for learning. So why use UDL? Because it provides access. So if you hear me use UDL, that's Universal Design for Learning, and I'm just going to shortcut it to UDL. It provides access to all students with equal opportunity to learn. We remove barriers to online learning. We build upon students' strengths. And we design learning experiences that are academically rigorous, accessible, differentiated, trauma-sensitive, inclusive, culturally relevant, and student-centered. And when I say all students, I do mean all students. So universal design, again, was built around the premise of removing barriers for students with disabilities, but I truly believe that it benefits all students. It helps students who are already comfortable with online learning, and it also supports students who are learning to be comfortable with online learning. It helps students who are more extroverted by nature, and it also provides a nice platform for students who are more introverted by nature. And it also provides strategies to support students with time constraints and time management. So all of these elements are built into universal design for learning. And it also teaches 21st century skills. And I'm not sure if you've looked at and I did include the link because I could do a whole workshop just on 21st century skills. But you can see here in this image that 21st century skills includes learning skills, literacy skills, and life skills that are really important to build into all of our courses, because these are skills that have been identified as essential skills that workers in the 21st century need to have. So I included the links so you could explore a little more about 21st century skills if that's something you're interested in delving deeper into. I like this comic too. It further exemplifies that education is not a one-size-fits-all endeavor. There's a person sitting at a board in a band of various creatures, and the person sitting at the table says, for a fair selection, everyone has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree. And that's going to be an easy task for only one, two, maybe the bird and there's a monkey. Those two could climb the tree, but the penguin and the elephant and the seal and the dog and the fish aren't going to be so successful in that. I think that exemplifies the importance of having more than one method of evaluating our students. So some of the foundations for brain-based learning is that or some of the foundations for UDL, I mean, are that we're going to look at the to activate learning networks. That's the why, or the motivation. We're going to delve into each of these further. We're going to look at the recognition learning network. That's the what. And then the strategic learning network, and that's the how. So how to motivate to activate learning network. That's how to motivate and get our students engaged. The recognition is how to present information in the way that they're going to be able to hold on to and understand. And then the strategic learning network is how do they demonstrate what they've learned. And these all fit perfectly into the universal design for learning. Matter of fact, it's built on those premises. So the first idea is that faculty can offer various ways to encourage student engagement and support support of effective learning networks. And then that faculty can offer various ways to represent or show essential course concepts, and that faculty can offer students various formats for expression. And when we overlay those with the same premise from the last slide, the engagement is the why, the represent is the what, and the expression is the how. So let's look at each of those individually. I'm sharing this not for us to look at right now, but for you to see that in the link that I provided on universal design, it goes through each of these different networks, the why, the what, and the how, and gives all sorts of strategies on how you can embed these concepts into your classes. I'm going to pick just a few of those and share them as they relate to digital pedagogies and teaching online. So let's start with engagement. What is engagement? So when you think about engagement, we ask ourselves, how do we motivate and engage our students in the learning process? And in our superpower list, you had a bunch of these already. Create a welcoming environment, build community, use active learning, use team-based learning, authentic learning, allow choices, teach skills for success. So that comes back to sort of making sure that they know how to navigate and how to be successful, and recruit their interests. I saw somebody mention that they use music as a tool to motivate students. Those are all elements of this engagement. So when we think about designing our courses, the first question is, how are we going to engage and motivate and connect our students? So for every course, for every activity, these are components that we should be thinking about in the process of using the overlay of universal design. And that is all the why. Why are they here? Why do they care? Why should they be invested in what we're doing? And I love this quote. It's really important for me to remember often, is that we're not teaching content, we're teaching people. And so when you keep that in mind, it definitely makes the point of the human connection much more relevant. What is representation? That's the second element of universal design, and that has to do with how do we present the essential course content to our students. And so I'm going to suggest that we teach using multiple senses, and I'll talk more about that in a second, and that we want to activate prior knowledge. So always include a review or a remind of what they've done. Maybe, give them a chance to talk to each other in an online platform, create some breakout groups, let them connect with each other to review, with a good review question, let them remember what they already know so you can build upon that. Teach the foundational skills needed so that they can build upon those skills. Consider potential barriers to the content that you're presenting and remove those barriers. I'm sorry, I'm reading the comments. Yes, excellent. Use qualitative data to highlight stark learning differences. And then also to ask yourself, do all students have equal access to the content and experiences? And if there's one student that doesn't have equal access, then that's a problem. It's not like, well, but the other 70 do. If one doesn't, then we need to go back and address that. We need to think about how can we remove that barrier. As far as the representation, I like to use the rule of 3. For every concept that I'm teaching, I want to teach it in 3 different ways. So I might use a video, I might talk about it and have a reading that supports that. I might have an activity, I might have a web-based search. There's lots of different things you can pull from, but have at least 3 different ways that students can get that knowledge. And that way it's creating those neural pathway connections and leading to deeper learning. So in the chat real quick, I'd like to do a quick activity thinking about superheroes, keeping our focus on that theme. What are some different ways we could teach students about the history of superheroes? What are some tools or resources we could use? And just toss them into the chat.
While people are doing that, Jane, I just want to draw your attention to a question that was posed in chat.
Thank you.
I don't know when you might want to take it, but just so that you know that there's a question and there are some comments related to it going on.
How do we convince? Oh, I didn't see the first of those questions. I only saw the responses. That's funny because I had scrolled down so fast. How do we convince deans that standardization of learning experience is not appropriate? Thanks, Rhonda, for that question. I think the data supports that. So, I mean, I think if we can show the deans that that using varied teaching and varied assessment tools is in the best interest of our students, and also tying it back to those 21st century skills. It's impossible to assess those 24th century skills in a very flat assessment model. And so I think if we tie it to that we're preparing the future workforce, and we need to prepare them with the skills and the tools and the ability to demonstrate in a way that matches the requirements of the work world.
Thank you, Jane, for that. And responses are coming in to your question.
Yes, I need to go back. So comic books, yes, and videos and movies, Chat GPT, you role play. See, we have all these down. The evolution of comic books. I saw toys in there, games, cosplay. Yes. Web quests. So we already see that these are all good options for teaching. And so keep in mind that rule of three, every concept we teach, we can come back to the concept or the modeling here with superheroes and try to teach in three different ways, matching activities. Good, good, good. Excellent storytelling. Yeah, those are all fantastic. So the rule of three, always try every concept to connect into three different ways. And they don't have to be the same three ways, vary it up. It's better for your students if you provide various ways. All right, and then the last category is expression. How do I ask my students to show what they know? And so in this category, I'm going to suggest, this comes back to the answer I just gave actually in the fundamentals of practice, is to provide multiple ways for students to show what they know. And with that, so you're going to want to give them multiple ways. So maybe having a variety of different activities or assessment tools. And also consider having multiple ways for them to earn their grades. As opposed to having a final that's worth 80% of their grade, maybe have 80% of their grade built over the course of the semester and 20% in that final assessment. Because if that final assessment doesn't match their best model for showing what they know, it's a disservice to them. And so we want to provide ways for students to show what they know in a way that makes most sense for the content and for the student. So we have to keep both of those pieces in mind. Provide plenty of opportunities for students to interact with the content, and then guide our students in setting goals and monitoring their own progress. I find this one really, really beneficial. When students are monitoring their own progress, there's no surprises at the end, and it keeps their motivation high. This is just a graphic that shows various ways that what one particular instructor gave students the option to show what they know using different models. She gave them the choice to, design their own assessments. And I think this is really cool. I will say I've had a class where I had like 3 or 4 different choices and students could pick their choice. It's really tricky to be sure that you're assessing the same thing. So what I suggest is, rather than having one major assignment where they can choose 3 or 4 different models, I suggest using different models throughout the semester. That way everybody's doing the same, similar activities that maybe give opportunities for students who have different strengths in various areas. If it's something that if it's more of a reflection, I think it's absolutely great to let them choose whatever they want. All right, so back to the universal design for learning. In summary, we talked about the why of learning, the engagement, the what of learning, the representation, and the how of learning, the action and expression. So you can see that with universal design, we were able to remove many of those barriers that we addressed originally, the academic barriers and the social emotional barriers and the technology barriers. Some misconceptions about UDL is that it is not specialized privilege for a few students. I'm talking about course design across the board for all students. It's not about watering down your academic expectations. Instead, it's about, allowing students to access the content and show what they know. It's not a magic bullet or a fix for all students. You're still going to have students who, even if you universally design your courses, you're still going to have, things that you need to attend to individually for students. And it's not a prescriptive formula, meaning there's not a checkbox you can say, I did this and this and this and this, therefore my course is universally designed. It's a framework that we need to always revisit. I love this quote. Implementing UDL requires us to unlearn many beliefs, assumptions, and teaching practices that no longer work for us. And I think that's absolutely right. I think we have, I can speak for myself. I have some old school thoughts back there about how learning is supposed to work, and I have to go back and relearn those all the time. Rhonda would like to see some recommendations for valid and reliable online assessments. I believe there's a session about online assessments coming up at this workshop. I believe that the committee could speak to that better than I could. So in summary, with our superhero training 101, to quote Peter Parker from Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. So now that we have these superpowers, we have to use them to make our teaching better for us and better for our students. In this presentation, which I already shared the links with you, I have a whole list of resources linked for you to consider snooping around and finding what works best for you and what gaps you would like to fill. I love this Desmond Tutu quote, "There's only one way to eat an elephant, one bite at a time." If the concept of universally designing your courses seems overwhelming, pick one piece. Pick one piece, add that in, then add another piece, and then another piece.